I'm here.
Awesome. I got your video
Uh,
going here. Cool. So two questions that I wanted to put out to the audience, and you guys can kind of, put this in the chat, and Gerry, you can answer this as well. One of the ones coming from before here was someone was saying that their insurance company does not allow them to do pickup and deliveries or won't cover it. So I'd be curious what people say about that. And then people are also asking what infectant are you, or what disinfectant, not infectant, right? What disinfectant are we using for COVID for the vehicle? So, Gerry, what is your take on this?
well, I'm not sure about the insurance because insurance differs from state to state.
Hmm.
One thing I learned, just as an example, I know we've been having loaner cars in our shop for probably 20 years, and way back then, people said you can't do it. And we've got a lot of customers from, even from Florida or from California, and their first go around with their insurance agent says you can't do it. And what I say is call another insurance agent.
That's just what someone else said here. I would
Yeah,
say get a new insurance. That's crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we are disinfecting every vehicle. I'll see if I can get that. I think the website is smartsupply.com. I'll try to double check that for you if I get a moment, but that's what we use. It's reasonably inexpensive. You can spray it right out of like a paint sprayer is what we use.
Hmm.
And it works awesome. It's, approved and good stuff.
Yeah, make sure you guys are doing this too. I mean, more and more, even, I thought that we'd see a lot more of this earlier on, but I've seen a number of our shops firsthand that have got, COVID in the shop where it's taken out and they've had to close down the shop. And so, this is not something that we're just doing. I see people talk about this sometime and they're like, well, this is a, facade we're putting up. We're supposed to be cleaning these vehicles. We need to be doing this. We're not only putting ourselves at risk, our customers at risk, but our team members. So we got to be doing this stuff and making sure we're being careful.
And Hunt, there's so many customers, you don't know what they're going through.
Yep.
We've all know somebody that maybe has or has had cancer in the past or some type of serious medical issue. They don't come in and talk about it.
Yeah.
They see, are you wearing a mask? Is my car disinfected? We even wrap the car when we're done. So the customer sees that the steering wheel's wrapped, it's got a sanitized sticker on it, so they know we did what we can. We got to do our best to try to keep our employees safe and our customers as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big thing they see is, a lot of employees. If I got a younger technician out there, I'm 22, I'm not scared of this. We're not doing this because of ourselves. I mean, how many vehicles have we touched today? How many vendors have we interacted with, other coworkers? Do you want to be that person that sends a car back with all these germs in it and you get someone that's sick? You just don't want to be that person. It doesn't take much time. Just do it. And that's what we need to do. So cool. I won't bite into any more of your time here, Gerry, but I want to give you a quick intro, right? So Gerry Frank is joining us. Gerry Frank is not only an owner of a shop, but also owns Repair Shop Coach. Gerry is one of the first coaches I really ever met that not only talked about this stuff, he's doing it, right? And so I think that the authenticity that Gerry brings is unparalleled because if he's talking about it, it's because he's tried other alternatives. And this is what works and what works in his shop. He's also one of the best coaches out there as far as it goes on numbers. I'm a numbers guy myself, right? That's just nature of the beast. And Gerry knows these numbers. He understands it. And that's what he's going to get into today. So, Gerry, thanks again for joining us. And the floor is yours.
All right, great. I'm going to share my screen with you, and thank you for that incredible introduction. Give me just a second here, and I should. All right, tell me that you can see it.
We're ready to rock.
All right, so as you can tell, that's a perfect caricature of me. But as you see, and Hunt mentioned, I really gravitate towards the number side because the number side can make or break a business. First of all, I wanted to say too, a real debt of gratitude for Paar, Melis, and Hunt and Reed and the whole gang over there for putting this together. I'm honored to be a part of this great event. And I've also been a client, the truth be told, of Paar, Melis for a number of years. So I'm really honored to be here. Like many of you, I started off as a technician in this business. I didn't, I wasn't a college guy. I don't have a business degree. I learned everything I have from the school of hard knocks, and I made a lot of mistakes along the way. My goal today is to share some of those lessons with you, how we've remained profitable, very profitable through the years, and maybe smooth that road for you and share some of those lessons learned. So my goal is to make your business a little bit more profitable. I got a quick story for you. I'm going to talk to you today about the 3 profit levers. But right outside my office here in Cleveland, Ohio, they're redoing the road. And there's this massive, I don't know what you want to call it. I'm going to call it an earth mover, this huge machine. And it's grinding the pavement. And it's been going on, as you know, construction most of the summer. I get a chance often to be parked next to this thing, or when I'm going home, and I look into it and I can see that this huge machine is only controlled by just a couple of levers. So I want you to think for just a moment. I want you to think of your business as a machine, and you can control that machine. Your business is really a cash machine, but you can control that machine by optimizing really just 3 levers. And I want to talk about those levers. And those levers are sales and income, revenue, right? Cost and margins. And the other lever, the last lever there, is in expenses. And we're going to talk about them in that order. Why are there 3 levers? I'm going to say levels all day, levers. Because the levers are set out the same as your profit and loss statement. So, your P&L, your income statement, PRL, the way Melis calls it, really has 3 categories in it. It's got the revenue or the income, it's got your cost of goods in it, and it has your expenses. And those are the 3 levers we're going to talk about in today's presentation. So the first lever is sales. And if you think about it, when you start off in business, most business owners are going to grab this lever first. If I want to increase my revenue, I'm going to try to increase my sales. So they grab for that very first lever. So we'll talk a little bit about sales. So there's 3 ways to increase your sales. There's 3 ways to pull that sales lever. And those ways are acquire more customers, which better said, get more customers, increase the transaction frequency, meaning get your customers to come back more often, or increase the transaction size. And in our business, that's increasing the average repair order. I want you to maybe write that down, because if you're trying to grow your sales, these are the only 3 ways, in my opinion, to do it. Get more customers, get them to come back more often, or get them to buy more stuff. So let's talk about the very first one, acquire more customers. Again, most new businesses, this is where they focus their time. Now, every business, whether you're a brand new business or you've been in business for 30+ years like me, every business needs to attract new customers. People pass on, they may buy a new vehicle, they may move, or maybe they're just not satisfied with your level of service and they move on and choose another supplier. Sometimes it's a business customer mismatch, but we're always replacing customers. Think of that customer pool as almost like a bucket. We always have to be pouring water in it, and always some is going to leak out. We're always going to lose some customers. Again, that goal is to never lose a customer, but let's face it, we do. And really, one of the things I often think about, I don't think people are as loyal anymore either. It just seems like that to me. Could saying yes be killing your business? So what I mean by that is, if you're looking for new customers and you just invite them all in and you say yes to anybody with a pulse and a set of car keys, typically I'm going to say you're going to go home broke and tired. Trust me, I've done it. It's a really tough way to run a business. You've got so many cars, yet you're not maximizing each one of those. I want to maybe share a principle and maybe a little story with you. So one of my mentors many years ago was a gentleman by the name of Bill Glazer. And Bill owned a men's store in downtown Maryland, downtown Baltimore, I believe. And Bill talked about creating an avatar for your ideal customer. That's the first time I ever heard that. So Bill would take a look at what his ideal customer would look like. Who was going to buy a suit and slacks and spend big money on menswear? What did they look like? Were they business people? Well, of course they were. Where did they live? Where did they work? Did they live in the area or did they travel? A lot of different questions about building his ideal customer. So he put a face to it. In fact, he even put a name to it. And he called that avatar, that ideal customer, Sydney. Strange name, but I always remembered that. So when Bill would maybe do a marketing piece, he would write that marketing piece to Sydney. When Bill would do a commercial, he would do that TV commercial like he was talking directly to Sydney. I want you to think about, who is your Sydney? Develop your own customer avatar. Where does that customer live? Are there specific neighborhoods they live in? What kind of income level do they have? Do they own their home or do they rent? Do they live in an apartment? What kind of car do they drive? Do they have children? See, instead of marketing to anybody with just a pulse and a set of car keys, a lot of technology today allows us to really drill down and decide who you want to attract in your business. So when you think about acquiring new customers, I want you to think about, who is your ideal customer? And I love what Bill did. He put a name to it. I can tell you, acquiring new customers can really be expensive. So the average return on a new marketing piece is very low. It's about 0.5% is what I see in the industry today. So think about that. If you did a marketing piece, maybe you're doing a direct mail piece to attract brand new customers, you could spend maybe as much as, maybe you're going to spend 10,000 pieces out at maybe 50 cents a piece. So you're going to spend $5,000 on this marketing piece. And again, I said your expected return rate is about 0.5%. So what does that mean? 0.5% means you're going to get about 50 responses. That's $100 a call. So you can see how expensive that could be. If you're going to spend that kind of money, you better master the phone. This is something that everybody says, I got, know that that's not a problem in my shop, but phone conversions can make or break a marketing piece. So pay attention. We listen to a lot of inbound and outbound calls to make sure we use scripts to make sure that they're answered correctly. So this is one of those big levers, I think, when I'm trying to acquire more customers. Let's talk about the second leg of that. Increasing transaction frequency. Get your customers to come back more often. I don't know about you, but when a customer hands us their car keys, there is typically more than one key on that key ring. Are we servicing all of those vehicles, or are we just serving the one? What would your car count look like if you were able to add one visit per client per year? It would be amazing. I'm going to share some of those numbers with you. But first, let's talk about a few facts. So statistics say that the average American household owns 2.28 vehicles. Are you seeing that with your customers? I know in my home, we own 4 vehicles. And a lot of us with college-age kids, you could probably say the same. So 2.28 vehicles. The average vehicle on the road today is almost 12 years old. The other key, my point here is, the other key on that key ring that maybe you are not seeing could be a rolling gold mine for your shop. How do I get to that second car? Now we can debate this. Cars are requiring less and less maintenance. You can buy into that or not. I know back in the day, you would say cars would come in 3 or 4 times a year. I'm going to say the average vehicle requires service about every 6 months. You can debate that, but just kind of go with me and buy into that for a moment. So let's do the math and see what your car count potential is. So if you would take your active clients, say you had 1,000 clients, multiply that times 2 vehicles. again, 2.28 vehicles, but let's just say 2 vehicles. And if I could increase that visit from 2 to just 1 more, 3, that could give you your car count potential. So again, write that formula down and later just do the math. I'd love to hear what you got. You would probably have so many cars in your shop that you wouldn't be able to handle them. You'd have to build more bays, add more technicians, another service advisor. Wonderful problem to have. But we're not tapping our existing car count potential. In other words, we're not getting our existing clients to come back more often. So this is where the gold lies in marketing. Not always attracting new customers. Yes, you have to get new customers, but I want you to focus a bit about increasing that transaction frequency. How do I get to that second and third car? Or how do I get that customer to come back just one more time a year? I can tell you, I would say become a marketing maniac to your existing clients. And I like that word, maniac. Today, back when I started in this business, and I don't want to make myself sound old, but you didn't have a lot of choices. You had direct mail and you maybe had the phone book. TV was way too expensive. Social media wasn't around. Maybe there was email. I can remember even using fax broadcasts, so you can start the laughs and the chuckles now. But today there's multiple medias available. So I want to be everywhere my customers turn. Direct mail, social media, email, and text messaging. You have to understand, for all of these to be effective, don't underestimate the relationship. I'll give you a quick example. I know email open rates are very low. You can say, I've tried email and it doesn't work. Numbers I see are somewhere between 12 to maybe at the most 15 to 16% for an open rate on an email. Let me ask you, if a friend sent you an email, would you open it? Of course you would. I would say that open rate would probably be darn near 100%. So the relationship in your business with your customer is huge. I remember something a mentor of mine said, Dan Kennedy said, you need to be an invited guest, not an annoying pest. So when you're marketing to your customers, if you're sending them emails and text messages and you're viewed as an annoying pest, guess what? You're not going to get much of a return rate. So it's all about the relationships in this business. I want to share another strategy about getting to that second vehicle. Pre-book your next service. Now, right away, I know half of you on the that are joining us today are saying, Gerry, I've tried that and it doesn't work. A book that I read once, it was called Influence. Robert Cialdini is the author. It was called Influence. I would suggest you read that book. He cited a simple change in the way a dental practice booked their next appointment. Now, if you went to the dentist or you went to the doctor, most of them hand you a card and say, here's your next appointment, right? They write it down. Just that simple change of handing the customer the appointment card and having the customer fill it out increase that dental office show up rate by 30%. What do we have today that could really knock that out of the park? We've got cell phones. What if you asked your customer to grab their cell phone and grab their calendar? I'd like to book your next service for you. Do you think they would show up if they actually put it on their calendar? You bet they would. So some of this takes a little bit of extra work, but again, we're just trying to get one more visit per year. Another thing we use is bounce back offers. There's a whole bunch on the screen there, but I often think about the department store Kohl's. If you've got a Kohl's in your area, what typically happens when you go to Kohl's? After you make your purchase, they always, on the receipt, they always have an offer for you to come back. I think they call it Kohl's Cash. There's a very short time window in that offer. They've got to bring it back within the next 10 days or something like that. But there's usually a chunk of change attached to it. There's some significant savings. So there's a lot of things here we use, and it's not just a coupon. Some of the things in the example, you can see a wooden nickel. Maybe some of your better customers, you give them a wooden nickel to invite them back. That little red monkey is a mirror hanger we use. We put a coupon on it as a little car care gift. A lot of different ways to try to invite your existing customers to come back and try to get to that second car. Let's move on to that next leg of trying to get more sales, and that's increasing the transaction size, better known as increasing your average ticket. Ask for add-on sales during the check-in process, and I always think when I hear that, I always think about McDonald's. Would you like fries with that? In a little research that says McDonald's sells 9 million pounds of fries a day. That little phrase added trillions of dollars to their revenue. Are you asking for fries every day? Would you like us to change the wiper blades? While your car's in here, would you like us to rotate the tires? All of those things add up to those French fries in your business. The other thing I would say, look for companion sales. So maybe you're taking those tires off, ask for the wheel balance. Sometimes we may be doing, I don't know, we're replacing hoses on the vehicle and we're just refilling the cooling system rather than flush it. Look for those companion sales, great ways to increase your average ticket. Sell more maintenance. Gosh, I told you the average car on the road is 12 months old, or I'm sorry, 12 years old. If I asked you how many miles does the average car that rolls in your shop have? You can type it in the chat now if you want. I know in my shop it's well over 100,000 miles. When do these vehicles need maintenance? About 100,000 miles. So make sure that you approach the maintenance. I want to make sure that you tell the whole story when it comes to maintenance too. A story I heard the other day, which was awesome, and I share it with my service advisor last week. What if you were going to a doctor and say you were going to the doctor's office and you've been visiting that same doctor for a number of years, and he only told you part of the story. He only told you maybe about, your arthritis or, your migraine headaches or what might be ailing you. But he never checked your blood pressure. He didn't maybe check to give you a blood test. He didn't do the things that can really make you live longer. And now you've maybe got some health problems. What would you be saying to that doctor? You mean I could have lived to be 90 years old and you didn't tell me? I know the average customer in my shop wants to keep their vehicle for over 200,000 miles. Why not help them do that? Sell more maintenance. And I know you do inspections, but I just wanted to say, so we all do digital vehicle inspections. And I would like to say, are you knocking it out of the park? Are you able to master them? A couple things I would like to say. When a customer brings in a vehicle for an inspection in your shop, why do they believe you're doing an inspection? Is it for your benefit or is it for their benefit? So informing the customer, and I'll give you a little script here in just a moment, why you're doing an inspection could be a huge difference maker in your average ticket when it comes to inspections. You may have heard this before, but we live it, the 300% rule. What's the 300% rule when it comes to digital inspections? 100% of the cars get inspected. So virtually every vehicle that comes in our shop, unless it was just in for service and they're bringing it back for the repairs, we do our best to inspect every vehicle. 100% of what we find gets estimated. So yes, it takes some time, but I want to estimate that. And I want to present 100% of that to the customer. I heard Aaron before talking about maybe not what I would say is I soft sell the maintenance. The customer brought the car in for brakes. I'm not going to overwhelm them with everything. But again, think of that doctor story. I do want to tell the whole story. So I want to present the whole thing. But as Aaron said, you want to soft sell some of that. So I'm 100% in line with that. And then here's the thing. You may be taking a picture. Your technicians might be doing an awesome job of the inspection. And yes, you might even be sending the picture to your clients. But is your service advisor actually reviewing the inspection with your customer? And I underline the word viewing there. We look at how many times a customer opens it, do they view it, and I listen and I record outbound sales calls. Because if your service advisor is not going through that inspection picture by picture with the customer, you're losing a lot of the bang from a digital inspection. Most customers think about it. If they looked at any one of those pictures, I think there's a corroded battery maybe in that middle picture. If they looked at that, do they have any idea what they're seeing? I know when I take a customer underneath the car and I'm maybe pointing out bad control arms or things like that, they're looking at some of the rust at the exhaust or underneath the vehicle. They have no idea what they're looking at. So again, you have to review it with the customer. That's where the rubber hits the road, or really the money hits the cash register when it comes to a digital vehicle inspection. This is the way we inform our customers, and it may not be exactly the way you want to say it, but again, when a customer comes in for the first time, I let them know we're going to do an inspection on their car, and it may sound something like this. So, you know, Mr. Smith, thank you so much for visiting Auto Repair Technology. I guess I got some good news and bad news for you. The good news is I want you to know our technicians are very thorough. So you should feel really confident when having us service your vehicle that's in a safe and that it is in a safe and reliable condition. Now, we accomplish this by doing inspection each and every time your vehicle's in for service. I guess the bad news is our technicians are thorough, as I told you. And from time to time, we might find a few things that need attention. Listen, I'm not going to try to sell you anything your car doesn't need. My goal is to have your vehicle in a safe and reliable state at the most effective price. Who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want a safe and reliable vehicle at the most cost-effective price? What this does is it sets the customer up for the expectation that now you're going to be calling them, or now you're going to be reviewing that digital inspection with us. Often, I mean, let's face it, cars are built to last. Maybe it doesn't need anything, but often it may. And what this does is it gives the customer the expectations now. They're expecting your call, that you may call them back and review that inspection, or better said, you will call them back and review that inspection. Before we get off of the inspections, I just want to share a little story that always comes into my mind when I think about vehicle inspections, and it's something that's really personal to me. Chokes me up sometimes. So, I remember reading something online where it was maybe a December day or a November day, much like today. Sometimes the temperature can drop here in Ohio, which creates fog. The roads, you can have that fog, and it makes it tough to see. And I remember reading this article where a girl was traveling home from college on a day that was really foggy. Her car broke down and she couldn't make it to the side of the road. I don't know all of the specifics, but unfortunately, she got rear-ended by a semi and lost her life. At the time, I had a daughter traveling back and forth to college the same way this young lady did. When I hear that story, the first thing that goes through my mind is, dear God, what if we were the last person to look at that car? It touches me today. And that's why when a customer comes in and says, I don't want an inspection, I may have to tell them, I don't want to work on your car, because it's that important to us. Now, of course, there's a way to sugarcoat that. But what we do is very, very important. And it's our job to make sure we tell the whole story and give that car a thorough inspection. Okay, profit lever number 2, the margin side of it. So you've all heard this, sales fixes everything. Well, I got to tell you, I disagree. Sales don't fix everything. Gross profit dollars do. You don't pay your bills with sales, you pay them with gross profit dollars. So parts margins for most shops, about 50%. Most software gives you that, but often we look at that as it's just a number. You need a parts matrix to accomplish that. When I ask many shop owners that work with us, hey, how do you price your shop? They may say, I double the parts. Well, you don't double it on everything, right? If you bought $1,000 engine, you wouldn't, or $1,000 transmission, or a $2,000 transmission, or a $5,000 transmission, you wouldn't double it. So you need a parts matrix. This is just an example matrix, but obviously you can see the lower the part, the higher the multiplier. So I can buy that $2 bolt and sell it for $6. And then when I get up to that 500 and above, I may be only using a 35% multiplier. This is the easiest thing to fix in your business, but it's often the hardest thing for people to do, because raising your margin takes a belief. A belief in what you do is valuable and I deserve to get paid for it. I'm better than the competition. What we provide the customer with, so much value. It's the easiest thing to fix, but yet it takes that belief. You got to believe in what you're doing. Of course, there's exceptions. The things you wouldn't apply to this markup. Typically, if I ask a shop owner, when couldn't you use this markup? They would say typically three things. Tires, of course, maybe batteries. You could not use this on batteries. And then often they say dealer parts. And just my personal take on that. We're not, I heard Euro shops and all of that. Maybe you have to buy a lot of parts from the dealer, but we don't buy an enormous amount of parts from the dealer. And most of the manufacturers or the dealers in our neighborhood, if that part came out of warranty or you had your car serviced at the dealer in 13 months or 366 days, you'd be SOL. At our shop, we offer a 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty, even on a dealer part. So we take that warranty, and I believe that it's worthwhile that we can charge a little bit more for it. Watch your language when it comes to selling parts. Often we invite that parts conversation. What do I mean by that? We use things like, I got to go to the dealer to buy that part, or that part's only available from Chevrolet, or that part's only available from Mercedes. Saying those things invites the customer to call that other manufacturer, that other supplier, for a possible price. So watch your language. And menu price when possible. I think you know what menu pricing is. Instead of pricing out everything individually, you get a total package for it. Think about that McDonald's story. The value meal is $8.99. You're not necessarily having to break out everything. Sometimes that's not permissible in every state, so you want to check with your state laws on that. But in a world today where there's so much pricing transparency, especially when it comes to parts, little things like language and menu pricing things can make a big, big difference. So let's move on to the second leg of that, margins. We really only sell two things in this business, if you think about it. We sell parts and we sell labor. We talked about the parts side of it. Let's talk about the labor side of it for a moment. Labor costs are typically your largest direct cost. Labor margins, typically 65% for most shops, I think would be a great goal. One of the things I always look at when I pull my business summary or your management software report, or maybe you're looking at on your income statement at the end of the month provided by your accountant, I always look to try to make sure we're selling more labor than parts. Don't sell yourself short on that. Now, that's not, again, we're talking about most shops here, so that may not be right for everybody, but I like to look at selling more labor than parts. I think it's very important. And optimize your technician's productivity. Set a goal. You can't manage what you don't measure. So if your technician is available for work 40 hours a week, what is he actually billing? Often the time isn't the billable hours. It may be that he's not working on a car the majority of those times. In a word, the only way to fix this is actually you have to have a time clock sheet or have them punch in and punch out. And I know that's a pain in the butt, but you can't manage what you don't measure. A quick story about labor, and I know I'm running short on time here, so I'll try to move through a little quickly here, but a quick story about maybe labor and parts and all of that. So let me ask you a question. If you had $100 core or a part that was supposed to go back, maybe it was a defective part worth $100 and it was on your parts shelf and you wanted to make sure that the technician didn't throw that in the trash, and that parts came up missing. Somehow it ended up in the garbage. I bet you would be dumpster diving, or somebody in your business would be. You'd be looking through that garbage, digging for that part. Yet the same thing happens every day with labor. When we go in every day, assuming you're working an 8-hour day or a 10-hour day, each technician has 8 or 10 hours. Your service advisor has 8 or 10 hours to sell. That's what they produce. And if your labor rate's $100 for just even comparison, and your shop isn't productive, and you're losing that hour in a day, or worse yet, an hour every day, times every one of those technicians, you're losing a lot more than that $100 part. Yet often that goes unnoticed, that goes undetected. It's one of those quiet profit killers in a business. So the only way to really track your labor is to measure it. You have to get your technicians to punch in and punch out and measure it. Once you start measuring things, it's amazing. Things start getting done. People start paying attention to it. We can talk more about that later on the Q&A portion of the call if you'd like. One of the things I look at too is you got to set goals. So what is your productivity goal? I mentioned that earlier before. I think 75 to 80%, just comparing the time that your technician is in the shop versus how many hours he's producing. How many hours are we putting him underneath the hood of a car? And then the revenue per employee. So you can take your total revenue and divide it times your total employee compensation. So all of your employees added together times what you're doing a year in annual sales. In a service industry, it's typically 3 to 4 times. So it might be a good comparison to see just kind of where you're at. Okay, the last profit lever here is expenses. And it's the last profit lever for a reason. I do not believe you can save yourself into profit. You can't. But expenses are important. For our conversation, we're talking about expenses as everything except the direct cost. So I'm not talking about parts cost, that's a cost of goods. I'm not talking about technician cost, and I'm not talking about service advisor cost. I'm talking about all your fixed expenses. Things like your rent, your utilities, your insurance, all of that. It's absolutely crucial that your accountant is calculating this properly, that those expenses are dropped down below, that your technicians are up in fixed cost. Paar, Melis, Hunt, they do a wonderful job with that. It's the way to make your profit and loss come to life so you can actually make some sense out of it. Briefly on expenses, I believe your expenses as a percentage of sales should be somewhere between 25 to 30% of sales. Maybe other people disagree. I've seen 35%, but the main thing is that you have a target to shoot for. So expenses ideally should be about 25 to 30% of sales. If it's not, usually the key is I would certainly review your expenses, but the key is to sell more, grow your income, grow your sales. Marketing needs to be measurable. This is a big expense. And today there's a lot of fool's gold when it comes to marketing. People on a website or maybe even on social media will have you buy into clicks, impressions, those types of things. They're not measurable. They do not lead to cash in your bank account. So you need to make it a direct call to action. Whether I'm attaching a phone number to it that we can measure, whether the customer is showing me an email or a text message, somehow I have to measure it so I can measure my ROI when it comes to marketing. When we're looking at expenses, credit card processing fees can also be pretty big too. So you want to check that. Again, 0.5% on over $1 million business can be quite a bit of money. So make sure you research that. I'm just trying to go through some of the big ones. Review your credit card statement each month. It's amazing sometimes how many things that may be on that credit card statement that you no longer use or don't, an information system or something like that. So take a look at that. I go through that each and every month to make sure. There's affiliate discounts. If you're a member of the network, Parts Plus, maybe Napa Auto Care, almost all of these parts affiliations have some type of discounts. You can get a discount on uniforms or trash removal, your cell phone bill. Heck, many of them offer even towing assistance or reimbursement. So make sure you're taking advantage of all of those discounts. And lastly, don't be afraid to negotiate. So you can negotiate a lot of these rates. It doesn't hurt to ask. Often if I call my trash removal up or whatever it may be, they'll give you that discount just for asking. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call for a better price. Think about what happened during COVID, maybe when your business had to be extremely restricted. You picked up the phone and maybe you called your point of sale system, see if there's anything they could do for you. And they were so gracious to help. So many vendors were able to do that. So don't be afraid to negotiate from time to time. And one of the big things that I do, I usually sit down when I get my P&L, I look at it and I want to compare expenses versus last year. And I go through it line by line. What are my marketing expenses? Are they up? Are they down? Again, those little things mean a lot. It's not one thing that you're going to find typically when you're looking at expenses. It's a combination of a bunch of little things. So when you look at these three profit levers, I want you to think about maybe an airplane or that really big earth mover type equipment I talked about before. What if it was off just 2%? Would that airplane land in its destination? Of course not. It would be way off target. If you have margin goals, profitability goals, what if you were off just 1 or 2%? Would you land in your destination? Of course not. So you can move these levers. Little tweaks sometimes mean a lot, but you can move these levers a little bit. And I'd leave you with, measure, measure, measure. You can't get the changes you need unless you measure them. So Hunt, I don't know if you're on, but I'm ready. We can take any questions and answers. I'll go ahead and stop that share if I can.
Leave that open real quick, Gerry, actually,
All
because we
right.
had one of the first things that we had a question about was the parts matrix. But yeah, I want to dive into one of the things that you said that, really hit home, that a lot of people don't get here is a lot of people take driving ARO and giving, a full digital vehicle inspection. A lot of people take offense to that because they're like, you know what, people are coming in here for oil change. I'm not going to throw this all in their face. They don't want to hear that. But this is not us selling anything. This is us communicating it, right? I love the examples of doctors and dentists office, and I say this all the time, and I can't take credit for it. One of my clients actually told me this, Travis Troy, who does an incredible job on ARO. He says, if you go to a doctor and you've been smoking your entire life, is he going to say, hey, Gerry, you know what? I'm just not even going to bring it up. No, every single time you go to the doctor, he's going to say, Gerry, you need to stop smoking. You're going to kill yourself. Right. And so this is the same exact thing with a car. Hey, you know what? If you got stuff that's deferred maintenance, I'm not saying that we got to, chalk this up and say, hey, this is something that you need to do right now. We need to prioritize this stuff. But these are safety issues, right? These people are going to be out there with my family. These people are going to be out there with their own family in it. A lot of people are completely ignorant when it comes to their vehicle and maintenance and stuff like that. And so if it's not making a noise, if it's not rattling and shaking, most people in the world today are not going to know anything's wrong. And so that's where our job is, to be the eyes and ears, to give it a checkup. But let's see here. So Gerry's got two questions here. Now, Gerry, was that parts matrix slide that you have on there, is that pretty close to what you'd like to see? Because he was wondering if you could show that again. I didn't know if that was just a.
It's one. I guess one of the questions I always think about when we're talking about pricing. I gotta, I gotta have the cover your butt statement, right? As an independent business owner, you're free to price your business, your prices wherever you want. I know when I look, one of the benefits we offer a member when they first come in our fold is I look at their numbers. I review their financial statements, much like I'm sure you do, Hunt, and your team there. And I'm sure you would agree with me, the biggest problem sometimes is their margins are really bad, and they could make those tweaks really easy with how hard is it to put a parts matrix in your software? It's done like in 30 seconds. Getting more customers, it takes a long time. It takes a big investment. But that parts matrix is the hardest thing sometimes to do. People just don't believe in their prices. So that parts matrix, and let me see if I can get back to it real briefly. It's an example parts matrix. I think it's pretty good.
I looked at it and it looks like to be pretty in line. Everyone's a little bit differently and there's tweaks and stuff like that. But, a lot of this too is just like everything in the world, it's not something that you need to take literal, like where, hey, you can only be at 3.35 at the high end. You've probably seen this too. I have some guys that get 5 times, right? For
Sure.
anything under $10. You can get pretty aggressive on this stuff down below, and you got to know your market. Once you start getting towards the bottom of this parts matrix, that's where you got to really be careful. A fine tweak in a percentage is going to be a monstrous tweaks in dollars and cents. So sometimes people get lost in this and they say, well, hey, I'm just going to increase all of these by 3%. That 3% change up top is going to be 15 cents. That 3% change at the bottom is going to be $35, $40. So be very careful with it, tweak it. Yeah, I mean, Gerry, I think that probably answers your question. If you don't have a parts matrix out there, this is probably a good place to start, and also talk to other business owners. A lot of times I'll leverage people and say, hey, you know what? Gerry does great at his parts matrix. I have a client who stinks. Why don't we just use Gerry's, right? We don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
the beauty of the parts matrix is you set it and forget it, right? It's in there, it marks it up. And then the last thing on parts matrix is let the parts matrix do its job, right? I see so many people that
Oh,
override anything. Like, we have a parts matrix, but they only use it for 20% of the time because everything gets overridden, right?
yeah.
Make it so the parts matrix works 95, 98% of the time. And there is little situations, but stick to it. That way we have repeatable processes and it works.
When I went to school, I went to a Catholic school, and this was way back when, but one of the nuns had a ruler, just like this one. And every time they did something wrong, or every time I did something wrong, and I did a lot of things wrong, she'd usually whack me over the head with this, or worse yet, she'd hit me right over the knuckles with it. And that's what I wanted to say. When you put your parts matrix in, it's easy to put this in. But then I want to smack you right over the knuckles when you go ahead and you override it, just like you said, Hunt. It's crazy.
Just let it do it. Just let it do it, and what about labor matrix? I know some management softwares out there don't do a labor matrix, right? Some of them can get pretty complicated. I mean, the general idea on a labor matrix, if that's what you're asking here, James, general idea on a labor matrix is just like this for the parts. We're going to make more money, when some of these hours are small, and then when the hours are big, we're not going to be able to mark it up as much. Some people do that with an actual labor matrix where the price actually changes. And some people call it a labor matrix, but they just add hours to the book time or round up. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Gerry?
Well, what we do is we add a percentage on to booked hours, or to build hours. And the reason why we do that is, those labor hours are a guide. And when that vehicle is new and they're going to replace a component, an alternator, or an air conditioning compressor, a suspension component, everything comes off nice and easy. We're here in Cleveland, Ohio, and there's just an enormous amount of
That
snow on
four-letter
the
word,
road,
right?
rust, salt, all of that. So I can I definitely can see adding 20% onto most of the build time, because it's going to take that long, and I can legitimately justify it.
Yeah, and the big thing on that, James, is the whole idea with a parts matrix and a labor matrix is the matrix is supposed to be able to increase our margins, but do it in an effective way where it's not really gouging customers. Hurts you where you hits you where it hurts least, right? And so that's why you can see on this, we got a ton of markup on these low dollar items because they're just not going to move the needle. But $2, $3, $4, $5 replicated a couple hundred, couple thousand times a year is that little percentage points that we were talking about. So yeah,
Absolutely.
awesome. So, oh, I knew that someone was going to ask this, and this is a big one here. Mike asked, do you pay the techs the extra hours, right? And so this is like asking someone's religion in this industry. If your technicians are flat rate, we have two schools of thoughts. Hey, the book time is what you get paid. What I end up selling that for, that's my business. You get paid the book time. That's probably half of my client base, maybe half of yours as well. The other half says, hey, you know what? If the book calls for an hour, I sold it for an hour and 20 minutes, you get an hour and 20 minutes. What are your thoughts on that, Gerry?
Well, I think, like anything, the way you pay your employees, it's a personal choice, and a lot of it depends on your employees, a relationship with them, etc. But I can only speak for what we do and what I would recommend. So typically, my technicians are the ones that are at least looking up the initial book time. An example I like to use: maybe you're replacing an exhaust system, and the car's, as I said, 12 years old, and you could see the bolts and everything on the converter are just, a rusted mess. Well, the labor guide might show a half hour. He's going to say, I need an hour and a half to do that because
Mhm.
it's going to take me a lot of extra work. I may have to weld in a pipe, etc. So great. So on those types of things, I definitely give it to them because it's justified. On some of the other things, if it's justified, we certainly would give it to them. My technicians are paid on a little bit of a different way. They're hourly with a bonus program based on how much they bill.
Yeah, and so, you hit the nail on the head, Jerry, too, is if we're increasing hours to drive our bottom line and it's still taking a technician the same amount of time, I can see the argument where you say, hey, this has nothing to do with you. This is how I'm choosing to price my business. But just like you said, I have a ton of shops now where pushing a lot of this stuff back to technicians because depending on once you get started, these older vehicles or more complicated stuff, throw the book time out the window, right? You're the expert. You've done it. You know how long this really takes. Sometimes it's less, a lot of times it's more. And so if I'm going to go back and the technician's saying, hey, boss, I need 4 hours for this, then what kind of precedent do you think that sets if I go back and say, well, the book tells me 3, so you're going to get paid 3, right?
Right,
Stop,
exactly.
stop nickel and diming people. If you got a good technician, you want to keep them. I probably err on the side of giving them a couple extra dollars. What is a couple extra dollars? What is a couple extra hours a month in the grand scheme of things for keeping someone happy to keeping someone invested in your business? So,
And I know we spoke some about hours and we're talking about hours, but that's inside baseball stuff. We never share that with the customer. I
yeah, and
never mention hours with the customer.
never mission hours. We're selling results here, right?
That's it.
And that's what we going back to dentists. Dentists are very good at this. I mean, dentists do digital inspections, right? We go in every couple of years, they do an x-ray of you to make sure to see what they can do. They obviously care that we're going to keep our teeth, but they're looking for more work, right? And so, we just got to be cognizant of that and make sure that we're doing a good job at that. Couple questions here. Chris, that is a good employee retention tool for Text Hunt as well as a recruiting tool. Let them have it. Yeah. This market is extremely tricky to find good help and keep good help. What if you go and you tell a technician, hey, you know what? We do add a labor matrix. We do mark up hours. We listen to you, Jerry. You're my new technician. I'm trying to, wow. I don't nickel and dime. If you say it needs 4 hours and I can sell 4 hours, you're going to get 4 hours. Imagine if you're a technician coming from another shop that is saying, hey, book is 2 and you get paid 2. I'm going to jump ship immediately,
Yeah.
right? So take care of our people. Without them, we don't have a business.
There's 3 people sitting around the table in every transaction. You have the shop, you have your employees, and you have the customer. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody has to win.
Yep.
If I'm selling it too cheap and the shop doesn't win, I won't be in business very long. If I'm taking advantage of the customers, I'll soon be out of customers. And if I'm nickel and diming a tech, I won't have anybody working for me. So it's
Yeah.
got to be a win-win-win.
Yeah, and it's one of these things where you just got to look at the equation, right? You got to put yourselves in their shoes. If we go to that 3-sided equation of selling, I have to deliver value, right? I have to know what I'm doing. I have to believe that there's value behind what I'm selling. And then the third one is the customer has to see the value as well. And I know personally that triangle for most shop owners, the hardest part of that is the shop owner itself believing that they are worth that money. The customers are willing to pay this. You guys are delivering good work. Just stand behind and get paid what you deserve, right? This is a
Yeah.
specialized industry. It's getting more complicated by the day. Let's make some money here, right? This business isn't fun enough to do it for free. So cool. We got another question here. We use a labor rate multiplier in place of a labor time multiplier. Text look up how much time they need by looking it up and adding if time is needed. This changed our profitability on labor and brought margins into order. Our techs make between 70 to 110,000 a year. No one is complaining. So what Alan is doing there is there's a lot of ways to skin a cat here, right? You can mess with labor rate, you can mess with labor hours, you can mix with a mixture of both. At the end of the day, if you're selling this right, we're selling it by the job, right? So if we can get more money out of it, you're confident in it. Alan is just a perfect example of that, of, hey, the owner himself being like, you know what? We deserve this. We're going to get paid this and we're going to deliver it. And magically it's working, right? How many times
Yeah.
have you ever had that conversation with a shop owner and we're talking about pricing and they did a pricing increase and they rolled back on it? They almost never do. They always say, what was the pushback? Hey, my cheap clients are still complaining. My ones that always say yes are still saying yes. It's just got to be very careful about that because a lot of times people are looking to impress, looking to beat some magic number that it's not out there, right? Most of your customers aren't price shopping you.
If
They're
some of
coming.
your customers are not complaining about price, your prices are too low.
Exactly, right? It's like what Aaron was saying too. Like, hey, if you're closing 100%, you're not
Yep.
selling enough, right? And so there's a fine line on that. And I love your idea of that too, of like, hey, you know what? We need to go and deliver everything. Doesn't mean that we need to sell all this 100%, but we need to put it all out there, because you never know. You might have that guy that's got that sentimental value in the car that says, hey, Gerry, do it.
Here's a, I would like to say, tell the truth, right? That's what it is. And I want to tell the whole story. I think everybody could relate to this story. Often a customer may come in, and every time they bring their car in, you tell them a little bit more of the story. Well, what are they saying? I'm going to quit going there. Every time I bring my car in, they're trying to sell me another $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
I'd better let them know right up front, the car needs $3,000. Now, it doesn't need it all right now, but this is what it looks like if you want to get that vehicle to 200,000 miles. And tell the whole story. Don't give them little bits of information.
Yeah, there we go. Good question. Don't sell with your wallet. Exactly right. We're delivering the story here. And the idea behind it is, I didn't buy that car, I didn't drive that car, and I didn't break it. Right. So there's no guilt there. I didn't do any of this stuff, unless your technician really did break something. Then we might
Sure.
have a little guilt there. But the good news for the customer is we can fix that. Right. So what's done is done. Here's what it needs, and here's how we get there. And hey, if you are saying, you know what, I just need to get this on the road and I'm going to trade it in a month, then hey, you know what, that's a conversation I need to have, because it'll help me, give you a better result. So awesome. One other thing that I had on here, we got a little bit more time. This will probably be our last question, unless someone else. Let's say a question here from Rhonda, or a comment. To your earlier point, at the dentist, they call it work that needs to be done in phases. Exactly right, right? Dentists are very good at this. They're not going to say, hey, you know what, Gerry, you got 8 cavities. Come on in. We're going to make your face numb for a week and get rid of it. They're going to say, Gerry, this needs to be done now, because you're probably in a lot of pain. Yes, I am. I need to do that. But did you know you're about to be in pain with this molar and this incisor too? So we're going to fix that up. Great point there, Rhonda.
My mouth hurts just thinking about it.
I know, everyone, but it's similar. A lot of people don't like to go to a mechanic because they don't want to hear this stuff. People hate going to the dentist too. So one question that I hear a lot about doing good digital vehicle inspections, right? You touched on that, and I hear this all the time. Do not do digital vehicle inspections or vehicle inspections if you're going to do a poor job. You're wasting your time, right? If you're going to do these inspections, do a good job and you'll get the results. But 2 things on that, Gerry, and we'll leave everyone with this. How long should I be spending on a digital vehicle inspection, or inspection in general, if I'm doing it by hand? And are we paying our technicians for that?
Well, I can just tell you my school of thought. And again, there's no one rule that applies to all. I track digital inspections very closely. And I can tell you that my technicians who do the best digital inspections make the most money. I can almost put a dollar amount to every picture. Sometimes when I'm doing a sales training class, I show a presentation where we actually did that. And the more pictures, like if you took two photos on a car, the average ticket was under $100. If you took 15 photos of a car, it was $1,200.
And good pictures.
And good pictures. So I don't pay my technicians. Again, they're basically paid hourly with a commission, but I don't pay my technicians really to do the inspections. They do them because they want to do them, because they know they're going to find the needed repairs.
And then how long would you say this is how long you should take to do a digital vehicle inspection or any inspection?
I believe a quality vehicle inspection, and I'm not talking about like a pre-purchase inspection,
Sure, yeah.
just an inspection when it's in for service, it adds a good 20 minutes onto the service.
Cool. Yeah, and I see that a lot, because a lot of times people say, well, why am I paying? I'm not going to pay you for this, because the whole reason you're doing this is you're actually driving more work for yourself, right? But one of the big things that I see is these don't go well unless we get buy-in. And so if I have to put some money on it up front to get buy-in from these guys, then they see the results of this. You probably don't even have to pay them anymore, right? So, oh man, we got a good question here. What is a good company for digital inspection? What is your religion? There's plenty of them out there.
There's
and they all
a
have
ton of them out there. Let me answer it this way, so I'm not, promoting anything. There's a lot of good ones. What I want to look for in a digital inspection, the ease that we're able to do it. So is it simple? I love a lot of them have a little explainer video. So if you're trying to sell a transmission flush, you can click on it. A little video plays for the customer and it tells them why it's so important. And the most important thing, me being a numbers guy, I said measure, measure, measure. I want to make sure I can measure everything about that inspection. I can pull up a report that says how many pictures each technician did. I can pull up a report that said how many of them my service advisor sent and how many of them the customers actually opened. So I'm measuring all of those metrics, because if you don't measure it, you can just say I'm doing a digital inspection, but is it actually helping your business?
Who do you use, Gerry?
Well, I used bolt-on technology.
There you go. Gerry uses bolt-on. So bolt-on, Auto Vitals are probably the two biggest standalone ones out there. And then as far as all-in-one solutions, something like Shopware and TechMetric have an all-in-one type solution. And so, what I say is take a look at them. They all work a little bit differently. They're all good as far as I'm concerned. There's not really any out there where I say, hey, that doesn't work, because everyone's shop is a little bit different. So it really depends on what your shop management software is. The idea that a lot of places are going to is all integrated in one, because it saves you a lot of time and headaches with technology and stuff like that. But what you're using is not as important as what it's delivering. If it's working, then hey, I'm never going to go to someone and saying, hey, Gerry, you're using bolt-on, you'd be able to get a ton of better results out of Auto Vitals. It's not really the platform, it's what you guys are doing inside. So awesome. Well, Gerry, thank you again. That was incredible. Tons of good information. I'm so glad that this is going to be available on demand, because I think that there's a lot of people probably watching this and the other ones before saying, you know what, I caught a lot of stuff there, but we got a lot of information there, a lot of really good usable tips for people. So thank you again, and we'll see you a little bit later.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Gerry.
Take care.